Hi friends, it's Becky, and it is time to do another watercolor and jewelry video. In these videos, I like to do two pieces of art, one that's wearable and one that I can put on a wall. And my choice for wearable art is jewelry, and my choice for art that I can put on a wall is watercolor, and they'll both be inspired by the same color palette. And so I'm going to go over what I'm going to make, how it usually runs, my tools, my materials, and then we'll get started. So the colors that I'm inspired by today are these dark greens that we see in the Gemstone Orphanage, the September box from Gemstone Orphanage. It had tons of these dark greens, but it also had little pops of pink. And so these pops of pink have really inspired me to add a little more pink to my palette. And so I grabbed some of these agate rounds that were left over from a Gemstone Orphanage adoption auction that I won. It was from the July adoption auction, and I had some of these left over, and I thought they'd be great to add to just, you know, up the pink, oomph it up a little bit. But everything else in here came in that box, except for the wire. There was wire in the box, actually, but I needed more to make all of my links, so I got some more of my wire. But I've got these pink agate boxes, or pink agate that was not in the box, but in the box we have some of these gemstone rounds, some of these crystal triangles, and these crystal triangles came in like multiple colors, but I just picked the pink ones out. One of these rice beads, that's going to make one of my links that I'm going to show you how I make. I used these chip beads for my focal, and these chip beads have little pops of pink in them, and then I added a little more pink with the triangle crystals, and I followed the tutorial that Steve did on the Homestrung Jewelry channel a couple of weeks ago for how to make a Tree of Life. I had never made a Tree of Life pendant before, and so I followed his tutorial, and I am really pleased with the way it looks, and that's going to be my focal for this necklace. I'm not making this on camera with you because there's already a tutorial for it, and it's over on the Homestrung Jewelry channel, and I will put links to every video that I talk about in this video, including the tutorial that Steve did, if you wanted to go and watch that. If you want to see my unboxing for the adoption auction stuff, that will also be in the description, as well as my unboxing for the Gemstone Orphanage subscription. It is a bi-monthly subscription, so it's every 2 months. They jam-pack it with all sorts of beads and gemstones and all sorts of really great goodies. So this is, I think, the third thing that I'm making with it, and I still have so many more beads left. All right. Oh, also, next week is the adoption auction for fall, and it's going to be fall themed and Halloween themed. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun if you wanted to get a gemstone with a smaller amount of beads, like maybe half of those beads, to go in that. It is held on YouTube, on the Homestrung Jewelry YouTube channel. You have to be a subscriber in order to bid, but it's a lot of fun, and you can get some really cool things, and sometimes you'll have stuff left over that you can use in other projects. So additional things that I'm pulling out of the dress-up bag are some head pins for the earrings that I'm going to do, a clasp, these 4-loop connectors from the dress-up bag, and then the earrings that I'm going to do later, I've got these elephant crystal elephants, some more of the crystal triangles, and then these smaller rounds. I've got 2 6mm and the rest are 4mm. And so that's the jewelry materials that we'll be using. For tools, I've got some wire working tools, like round nose pliers. I grabbed my tweezer nose pliers instead of my chain nose pliers because for one of these links, I need to do some careful bending because it's right next to this crystal. So I'm using these for that. And then I still have not gotten enough of using my double flush cutters for cutting wire. It makes it so much easier to not waste wire when I do it that way. But it doesn't get close enough around wrapped loops, so I brought this in for when I do some wrapped loops using this. And it is just a micro flush cutter. So those are the tools and the beads that I'm using for the jewelry making. For the painting, I'm going to be using my Sennelier palette, and my inspiration for what I'm going to be painting comes directly from this flower on my palette. I'm going to be using Opera Rose. This is a fugitive pigment, so it will fade over time, but it's not going to be, you know, hung directly in a window, so it'll be long enough for me. I'm going to be using the Opera Rose. I'm going to be using this dark forest green, a little bit of this phthalo green light, and where is it? A little bit of this Quin Gold when we do that. So those are the paints that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be painting on a Baohong block. I've gone ahead and just taped up like half the page. It's the Baohong Academy, 300 grams per square meter, or 140 pound weight, cold press, 100% cotton watercolor. And I'm going to be using this Artegria round 6 for my painting, and I've got a jar of water and some paper towels so we can do that. And the way I normally do this is that I will use the time that you normally have to wait for part of your watercolor painting to dry, and during that time I'll do my jewelry. So I'm gonna move this aside and get my painting stuff ready, and then we'll move it back while the painting is drying. And there's actually 2 different parts of this painting that will require drying time. And so I'm going to be doing my earrings for the second part of the drying time. Alright, so I'm going to be making some pink daisies in a field of dark green flowers, but I want for there to be a kind of a bokeh effect in the background. And a bokeh effect is where things are like blurred out and maybe you've got like little circles of light or something, or speckles in the background. So that's going to be the first fun part that we're going to be doing. And I'm going to be using the greens and some of the Quin Gold for that. Let's move this over here so we can see what we're doing. Got my Tostitos jar full of water. Tostitos, come sponsor me. Anyway, I want to be able to just paint my background without worrying about leaving white space for my flowers. So I'm going to use some masking tape, and I'm going to mask off just some circles or half circles or whatever I feel like for where my flowers are going to be. And they do not have to be perfect circles, because flowers are not perfect circles, especially if you're looking at them from an angle or something else like that. So I'm just going to use my scissors and cut myself some rough circles. Let's do one there. I'm just going to place them wherever I feel like it and just give around the edges just a little bit of a rub. And maybe we've got a bigger one in the middle. So let's do like a half circle here. Oh no, up there is good. That's a good place for one that's kind of front and center. There we go. Like I said, I'm not measuring these out or drawing them out ahead of time because I don't need them to be perfect circles. I'm not going to need them to be even or anything like that. I just want to have a little spot when I'm done with my background that I can peel this off and have a white space for my pink. Because if I try to layer my pink over the green, it's going to mute the pink and make it much less pink, much less pretty, much less noticeable. Alright. And plus it's fun to just cut out weird shapes. That one too over there. We've got this one. Let's do some little half ones that are maybe at an angle. That. Yeah, maybe like ones that aren't quite open all the way. I don't need to do a ton of these. All right, I think that'll be good. All right, so now that I've got those masked off with my masking tape, I could also use masking fluid, but I already had this out to tape up my borders on my block, and I'm just using half the block so that I could use this other half for another painting at a different time. All right, so let's get this started. Just gonna grab some of this paint, get it down here, add a little more water. I'm going to just tone this down a little bit. There we go. Well, that's just a little bit of the warm sepia. Okay, so now that I've got kind of a lighter wash, let's get this wash out on the page. I'm actually going to go grab a thicker brush for the wash. I got a flat 6 for that one, because that's going to give us more coverage. We'll be able to get a more even amount of water on the page. The great thing about cotton paper is that it will soak up the water and it'll stay wet while you're working with it. And one of the main things about the bokeh effect is that you want to start working it while it's still wet so that your lines and circles blur into the rest of the background. Right now I just want the wash on first. I am going to be adding, this is why I wanted to mask it so that I didn't have to be careful around my white spots. So I'm going to be adding a few other colors to this wash, including that dark green. There we go. So now that we've got that on here, now I can switch back to my 6, pick up some of this dark green, and start dropping this in. And I can put this random places, and it should spread out from where I put it in these dots. And this is going to be background where there's most of the foliage, so I'm not going to concentrate a lot of bokeh here. It's going to be mostly in this part. But this will be like the base layer for this part of my background too. Let me grab some of that Quinn Gold. Whoop. Rinse that off a little bit better. I'm going to drop that in here. See if we can get just some more depth. Okay. This is the fun part. I've got my paper towel here, got my paint water, and I'm going to just drop a couple of circles and dry this off and start picking up the paint in little circles. So that I leave more of a white spot there. You could do large circles or small circles. It's a good idea to do like the large circles initially, like in the back. And that's started drying off, so let's get it wet and start it off again. See how those are like kind of next to each other, but not quite? I'm going to do another one right here that crosses over both of them. This I'm kind of ignoring for now. I'm just worrying about this part here because I'm not going to be painting over this later with leaves and things, but I am going to be painting over this part with leaves. So this part is where I want to really work on my bokeh. Okay, one more right here. Yeah, I think that's going to be good. There's a little bit of a hard line there. Just trying to soften that. Alright, so now I'm going to let this entire background dry by making my necklace while we're waiting. And then when I'm done, we'll remove the masking tape. I will paint my flowers and the first layer of leaves down here, and then we'll let that dry and make our earrings, and then we'll paint our last layer of both leaves and flower petals. So I'm going to set this aside, scooch back out. Let this dry. And now let's get ready to make a necklace. So I've got my pendant here that I'm going to set aside while we make our links. And I basically have made all of my links except for my little examples that I'm going to make for you here. And I'm using 18 gauge wire for this. Is this cut flush? Seems like it's got, okay. Yep. They both have a pointy end, so I'm just going to cut that flush for that end with the double flush cutters. And then I'm going to use my round nose pliers. You're just going to pop it right there. I go about 1/3 of the way from the tip of the barrel for this loop, and I just wrap it around until the end of the wire meets up with the rest of it. And once that's met there, I leave the loop around my barrel, and I just rotate it down to just below it and give it a little bumper like that, and that centers my loop over the middle of the wire. Alright, let me add my bead because that's going to tell me how much I need to cut off. So once I have my bead on, I'm going to pinch both the bead and this loop and bend this over the top with my hands. And then I'm going to measure about 1 centimeter or 1/4 of an inch away from here. I know that the side of my finger right here is that length, so that's why I'm measuring it against here. It's just something I know from experience. You can use a measuring tool to measure that same distance, but I'm just going to use the double flush cutter so I don't have to cut off any more wire. And let's do the second link. That was the one with the rice beads. I'm going to do this one a little bit faster because I don't have to explain it. Got my first loop. Add my pink agate. And before I started any of this, I made sure that all of these beads would fit on the 18 gauge wire without forcing it, because you never want to force your beads onto your wire. It will break the beads. I would use a lower gauge of wire if they had smaller holes. And I don't need that. Okay, now this is the one that I need my tweezer nose pliers for. And I'll show you why in just a minute. Let me make my first loop. Put these guys on here. I actually need to cut this at an angle because when it's blunt like that, the for some reason I just can't get the hole in the crystal to line up right if I don't cut this at an angle. It's weird, I know, but that's my little trick that I got to do here. So I've got my crystal and then my gemstone. There's the hole. And then a crystal. Alright, now you saw me on the other ones just kind of with my fingers bend the wire over the top of that bead. There we go, there's a little kink in the wire. I just had to move past. If I do that with the crystal, I run the risk of breaking the crystal. So I'm going to be using a tool to bend it. Not this one. Not this one, Becky. This one. they all have blue handles, come on. Anyway, yeah, not that one. So what I want to do is use this tweezer nose plier, and I'm going to bend it just a little distance away from the top of this, and that's so that the bend doesn't put any pressure on that crystal, because if you put any pressure on it when you're bending it, it will break the crystal. Ask me how I know. You definitely don't want to just be bending it with your fingers on that. You want to be careful, make sure there's space so that it does not break your crystal. It's just one of those things to be mindful of. There are some gemstones that you also want to be that careful around that might be a little more brittle than others. But then once you do that, it's the same as the other links that you make. You measure it off, give it a clip, and then roll up your loop. It's just, you know, sometimes you need to be careful with your materials. You can't just be Hulk smashing everything, which is just so frustrating because I love Hulk smashing. But yeah, once it's bent over like that, you do just roll it up with your round nose pliers. And I like round nose pliers because if I've misjudged my amount or length on my last one, I can move the barrel up or down to make it fit right when I'm doing that. You know, if it looks like I cut too much wire, I can just scooch it down. And you don't end up with perfectly symmetrical loops when you do that, but you still end up with loops that will work great in a chain. So since my stuff is definitely still drying, we're going to go ahead and put all of these together right here on camera instead of me doing it ahead of time or doing one side ahead of time, because we are spending this time making things while the paint dries. I have a terrible habit when I'm painting of wanting to fuss around with my painting while it's still drying. So having something else to do like this means that it's much more likely that my painting will survive intact without a ton of other fussing. All right. So I made 6 of this type of link. I made 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Wait, shouldn't there be 8? I might have to make another one. Let me see. Because I think I made 14 of these pink ones. 6 of these, so 3 for each side. I'm just making sure that I made enough so that I can keep. And I think I do need to make another rice bead link. Because we are about to missing one. All right. This is why you lay it out, folks. Wait, where is it? Whoop. It is entirely possible that I made it and then misplaced it. But I don't know where I would have put it. Or maybe I just miscounted in the first place when I was putting all of these together. There we go. Perfect. Let's... No, not that one. Pliers. Alright, so I'm going to be swinging open the loop on each of these links. And I'm just realizing that I don't want to have to swing this around the whole time that I'm putting things together. So I'm just going to put this one on, and then we're going to set that aside and do the lengths of the chain first, and then just pick this up for those final two to connect it to this, because it's heavy-ish, and it's going to be a little bit easier for me if I'm just work my way down the chain, because then I won't have a very, very heavy thing that I'm swinging around. I don't know if you guys can hear in the very, very, very background of this, one of my neighbors loves to share their music with the neighborhood on the weekends. I don't mind. I enjoy listening to music that is happening out where I'm at. And they never do it too late, like past bedtime or anything like that. It's just nice to be reminded that I live amongst people, and that those people have different tastes and different things that they enjoy, and it's just one of those reminders, you know? I like being able to feel like I'm part of a vibrant community. It's when one of my other neighbors decides to use their very expensive, very powerful, and quite impressive karaoke system at 2 in the morning that I might have a little bit of a complaint. But during the day, on the weekend, not a problem. Not a problem. You go have fun. You sing your heart out. It is a very, very great karaoke system they've got. Like, it's like having a nightclub next door. But I live in suburbia. So, you know. It's not like I bought a condo like above a nightclub. It's a place where people have children and that sort of thing. Children who need their sleep so they can function at school the next day. The karaoke was always on a Tuesday night too, so it's not like it was weekend and it's like, oh, okay, I guess it's fine. 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Am I complaining? I think I'm complaining. I'm not going to complain anymore. They haven't done it for a while, so I can probably just let it go. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to carry that around anymore. It doesn't affect me. I don't need to be mad about it. Do not need to be mad about it. Okay. Yeah, making beaded chain is super fun and I love doing it. And if this is the first video on my channel that you're tuning into, this month, the month of September, I made myself a little challenge to do at least 2 beaded chain necklaces each week for this month. And so far I've done exactly that. Well, no, actually a little bit more than 2 on several of my weeks. I think this is going to be my 3rd for this week. Because I am counting one of the necklaces that I made during the Customer Appreciation Week using a kit. So I will show you those things that I've made as well. And this, you'll get to see this on a person. If you tune in for my What I Made this week, it's on Sundays. I usually will record a video at some point during the day, showing off what I made trying it on so you can see what it looks like on a person, and just talking about how things are going and how things have been. And it's going to be a little bit longer this week because it'll be a 2-week catch-up, because last week I wasn't feeling great, so I didn't do that. I do reserve the right to make changes to all of my planned things whenever I need to. I am loving this dark green and this pink. This looks fantastic together. Just wait until we start adding some darker greens and the pink to that painting. Yay! Alright, let's get the clasp attached. I'm going to grab a jump ring or 2, because for the bar part of the toggle clasp, I like to have some articulation, and it's easier to get that if you've got a jump ring or 2 on it. So let me grab those out. And these are just some 5mm jump rings in the gunmetal color. I'm using black wire and gunmetal findings. I don't think it matters that much that there's a difference. I don't have straight up black jewelry findings. And I suppose I could make a toggle bar and clasp with my 18 gauge wire, but I don't feel like doing that. So I'm not gonna. Alright, so let's open up a jump ring, swing it open, attach my loop to this end, and this came in the box for the subscription box, which, by the way, it is one of my favorite subscriptions. Don't know if I've told you guys how much I love this subscription. Oh, that's wonderful. And sometimes if they have extra boxes available, you can purchase them. You don't have to be a subscriber to get one of those. It doesn't always happen that they have extras, but a couple of times lately they have, which is fantastic news for folks who would like to try out the Gemstone Orphanage before subscribing. You can try it out, and then once you're wowed, because you will be wowed, you can subscribe. You do get a discount for subscribing. All that's in the info on the Homestrung Jewelry web page where you sign up and all of that. I don't have a specific code for myself, but they do have a coupon code that you can use, and you can find that on their channel, that if you're signing up for your first box, you can get a discount on that. Or not on their channel, on their website. I'll put a link to that in the description as well, so you can check out the Homestrung Jewelry site and the subscription program. Again, it's one of my favorite subscriptions. I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, Steve, how did I do with my sparkly Tree of Life and my pink and green beaded chain? Right, that is beautiful. Let me check my painting. It feels pretty dry, so I'm going to move my bead table, my board. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I like this, is so that I can pick it up and move it. And it stacks nicely on top of other ones if you've got more than one. I will, of course, put links to the tools that I'm using in the description as well, including that bead board if you were interested in getting one. Alright. Shall we see what kind of white space I have to work with? Alright. Let's go. Peeling it off pretty carefully because I do not want to tear my paper. And it looks like it is coming off pretty cleanly. Bao Hong's pretty good about this, but some tapes are a bit stickier than others. One neat trick if you are doing this and it seems like it's going to tear the paper is to grab a heat tool or a blow dryer or something and just warm up the adhesive, and it'll peel easier without adhering. That's a good tip for if you've got labels you want to remove from jars or something. Heat it up a little first. It'll come off a lot easier. Alright. Let's get some of this Opera Rose out on here. I'm just going to be pulling directly from the palette for this. Actually, get this out of the way. Nope, okay. All of those are full. I should probably clean this out. Maybe I'll put it down here a little bit. Alright. I'm just taking my round 6 and I'm going out a little bit past the edge with my pink. I'm just using some pressure to fatten it up, to draw my petal down in here. I pretend we're at a little bit of an angle since this is more of an ellipse shape, and these petals will be shorter. And this is our background petals. We will be doing another layer of petals over this after it has a chance to dry. I'm going to go ahead and leave that middle bit a little bit. Let's do some over here on this side. There we go. And I will clean up these little white spots that are left behind. We'll come in and take care of that later. Again, we will have another layer after this of our petals. This one's gonna go like this. Maybe it's not open. And this one's just like from the side. So we're not even gonna see a middle on it. But do you see what I mean, where when I layer it over the green, it mutes the pink and makes it not quite as vibrant. And like, what is the point of using an opera if you're going to mute it and it's not going to be vibrant? Alright. Looks like my middle is still out here. So what we're going to do after I'm done with this bit is add a little bit of background leaf, which will also be drying. And while that is drying, for this I'm going to mix my dark and my light greens. So we get kind of a mid-tone green over here. And I'm going to do some stem. Some of this will get painted over with the other leaves when we get to it. Alright, this one's right here. And we've got a little bit of bleeding. Oh, looks like I picked that up instead of my green. All right. And some of this will start to fill in some of these spots back here. Almost ready to. It looks like a 3-year-old painted this, I know. But we're gonna have another layer of leaves over this that's gonna get much, much darker. But for now, I just want to start adding just a little more green to this part. And that's why I wasn't paying as much attention to the bokeh on this side of my painting as I was up here on the top. Alright, let's let this dry and we will go and make some earrings. Let's move this out of the way and get our little bits and bobs here. Yeah, I first thought that there was a hole that went through the elephant's head, but no, there isn't. The hole goes lengthwise through it. So we are going to put this guy on a head pin. But we're also going to be putting one of these 6mm on this head pin, like that. And now I'm going to do a wrapped loop here. So to do a wrapped loop, I'm going to hold on to my wire, bend the wire over my pliers so that there's space between the bead and where my loop will be to do the wrapping. And I'll use my round nose pliers to make a loop. And wrap the wire. Looks like these are ones that work better with pliers for wrapping. And this bead is just a little bit awkward because it's not round. We've got this head shape we've got to work around, but it's totally fine. Totally fine. Let me find those close-in nippers. Get this taken care of. Tuck that in. Alright. So I'm just making a dangle of these elephants, balancing on a little ball. That's being awkward. I will talk to you about the wrapped loop in a little more detail when it's not one of these awkward ones. When it's one of these others that I'm going to be making, because I'm making 6 dangles in total. 2 elephants and 2 or 3, 4, because I know how to do math. 4 of the next kind. So let's get these out here. And these are the triangle crystals. And these gemstones, I forget which gemstone they are. I'm sorry. I'll look it up and put it in the description once I am done making this, but I'm going to pop one of these. Each one of these 4 will be the same, where I have 3 gemstones and each one is separated by one of these pink triangles. Oop. Like that. And now I'm going to do a wrapped loop on here. Again, you're going to just hold it above there, put it over the top of your pliers so you have some room for wrapping. And then with the round nose pliers, you're going to hold onto it, like right there at the join. Push the wire around the top, like that. And then open up your pliers a little bit, rotate your pliers up so that the bottom moves out of the way. You can bring it all the way around. Once it's crossed over the top there, then you can start wrapping around the wire. And like with the other one, I was leaving it on while I wrapped, so it made it a little bit easier. For these ones, I'm probably going to be a little more careful just because I don't want to squeeze the gemstones and crystals together too much. There we go. And I'm just going to do all of these together. And what I could do is I can skip ahead to where I've done all of these drops and then we start putting them together on here. One more of these. Or what I could do is make one of the earrings with you and then do the other one off camera. Just to make it so that this isn't the longest video you've ever seen. Save a little bit of time. I could make sure that my paint is dry before I come back too. Yeah, I will put one earring together. Okay, and I forgot that I will need some wire, so I've got some 22 gauge wire here. And why don't I make some ear wires too? To make my ear wires, I'm going to do a quick loop at the bottom of each end of these about 3-inch long pieces of 22 gauge wire. Like that. I am going to give it a healthy smush to work hard in that loop, because these are 22 gauge and this is dead soft wire. And then I've got some 6-step bail making pliers. I do these two together so that they match. And I'm going to do a little loop around the smallest loop on my bail making pliers. I make sure that the first loop that I made is facing away from the one that I'm about to wrap around. I'll just push it around. Like that. And then with both of those together, I'm going to wrap around the second to the biggest. That's this barrel right here. So I want that to be facing away. As often I will just pull this end up to make a more curvy curve like that. Then use these pliers to make a bend right about there, just near where it meets that curve, and then cut the ends flush. And you can use a burr grinder or a metal file to file the ends, but I'm going to just give this a smush to work hard in that loop, and also to work hard in this so it doesn't deform while it's being worn. It's just smushing it in my chain nose pliers. You can use flat nose pliers for this as well, or if you've got a bench block with this colored wire, I would suggest using nylon tip on a hammer if you want to hammer it. There we go. So ear wire, we're going to make one of these together, and I'll separate and do the other one. And I want to do a third length of these above the elephant, but it's going to need to be jump rings. Okay. I just realized that I should have hooked this onto here before I wrapped it, but I'm just going to be connecting it with jump rings, so we are all good. Which means I can grab a piece of this 22 gauge wire. It's about 3.5 inches. Bend over that top bit to make myself a wrapped loop, like that. Sorry, I did come in here with a plan, but the plans went out of the window and I had to stop and feed the dogs. And they came in here. Alright, so another section of 3 of these 4mm and the pink triangles. Why is this pink triangle so hard to get on here? There we go. And one more. Okay, now this one I'm going to connect to my elephant before I wrap the loop. So let's get that bent over the top of my pliers. Bring that loop around. Stop and attach the elephant. I almost kept wrapping. All right. Now, this is the part where I suddenly realized that I should have done my wrap, connected it, and then wrapped it. But I didn't, so I am going to be using some jump rings instead to connect them. Because you can always do that. You can always come back in and do jump rings. And you know what? There was a bunch of jump rings in the dress-up bag too. I just forgot that they were in there, and that's why I grabbed the ones that I keep next to my desk. Alright, let's do our center one first, because doing the center one after we do the others might get a little awkward. It needs to be turned around the other way. So it is facing the wrong way. So I'm just gonna open this again. Turn that around. Because these have a front and back. And my elephant was not dangling with the pink side facing, and now it is. Oh wait, hold on. There you go. These are going to be some danglesome earrings, let me tell you. You know, I didn't even plan it that these would be opposite, but they are, and I love it because it's going to help it sort of fit better next to each other as they hang. I'm going to have to remember to do that when I make my second one. Bloop. I'm just trying to attach my ear wire to the top. There we go. Bloop, bloop, bloop. All right. So now I have my elephant. I will finish the second earring off camera. Let me check on my painting to see if it is ready for my second bit. And it is. Let's get this guy out of the way. To be thicker for this little bit instead of my background. It's lighter. So I'm going to pick up paint directly from my well. Now the Sennelier paint, like, it wets really, really easily because it has honey as a humectant. In fact, you pour paint and it takes like 3 weeks for it to quote unquote dry. By pour paint, I mean put it into the these pans, because that is something that I really enjoy doing, is pouring paint into pans. This part may take a little bit longer because I am being more careful and more deliberate with my brush strokes. But I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do that because Ellen finished her food and she is wanting me to go and be with her. That's one of the dangers of pulling directly from the pan, is you end up with a big lump of paint on your brush. Ah, I love that. All right. Let's do a couple more. Sorry, I just hit the camera. So I do not know if my hand is getting in the way of the camera and you being able to see my brush strokes, because I have to have it at a certain angle in order for it to work for me. Oh, that's too wet. I might do some outlining with ink when I'm done with this as well, because I just really feel like, especially since the black of my ink will help tie this together with the black wire that I've been using. Alright, so now let's get some big dark leaves. Space there. Yeah, I am definitely going to add some ink when it's completely dry, because I think that will work really well to tie all of my colors together. And it always ends up working well to clean up my rough edges. This is that dark green. Alright, now I think since I am going to be letting this dry again, maybe I can make my other earring and then come back to you after this is dried. I don't think you need me to stay on and make more jewelry. But yeah, I will. No, I'm missing something. I left those white spots on purpose for this Quinn Gold. we go. Yes. Yeah, 100%. I'm coming back with some ink, and we're going to outline and draw a few extra things around here to bring this all together and add to it. So I will make the other earring in the meantime. Just as a reminder, this is the necklace that I made using pinks and greens from the Gemstone Orphanage box. And we'll go over this again when I come back and we do some outlining. Alright, so everything is all dried, and I'm just going to go back in. I prefer illustrative styles rather than like realistic styles of watercolor art. And so I'm going to be doing that, just doing some little outlines around each of the petals and the leaves. And it gives me a chance to add some black ink to this painting to tie in with the black wire that I used to hold everything together. So we're just going to go around some of these petals. This is the Kodotaki Mangaka Fine. It's one of my favorite markers. For doing ink and wash. And I think that's most of these petals. There we go. See? Great that looks now that it's got some definition. Yeah, I'm not the best at doing florals, so this is a fun opportunity for me to practice making flowers and leaves, because the more you practice doing a thing, the better you'll get at it. Let's see, can you even see the black on these? Let's do something fun with these big leaves. I took the tape off here. I thought it might be fun to extend these leaves a little bit off of the outline. Makes it kind of fun, right? Art. That's what we're doing. We're doing art. There's no rule that says you cannot have fun with your art. Let's get these guys. Trying to keep my hand angled so you can actually see what I'm doing, which makes it a little bit awkward, but I hope you can see where I'm adding my lines. Just going in and adding them wherever I feel like they'll do the most good. Ooh, this one can go off the page a little bit there too. And this one. Haha. I like that, that's fun. Alright, and then this one is facing that way, so we want the outsides of our petals. And petals on the inside that we can see, like that. Perfect. Alright, and now I'm going to sign it. I always just do a little flower in the corner for these. And there we have my pink flowers to go with my pink and green Tree of Life necklace and my pink elephant earrings. And I made these, most of them. There were just a few beads that I pulled from my stash to thin it out, but most everything else that I used with this came in the Gemstone Orphanage September. Yes, it was the September subscription box. And once more, I will have links to all of those things below. There'll also be a link to my playlist if you'd like to see any of the other art and jewelry videos that I've done. There is one that is missing from that playlist, and that was, actually, I think I can add other people's videos to a public playlist, can't I? But it had, it's one that was on the Sufflex channel. It was the last painting and jewelry video that I did. I was on there live doing a painting and jewelry with Sarah Ayler while we were making jewelry with the Sunset Splendor box. I painted a sunset with a palm tree blowing in the wind. It was a lot of fun to do live. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, this is what I did for my art and my jewelry. It's one of my favorite things to do. It does take a while though. It makes a very, very long video, so if you have stuck with me through this whole thing, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will join me the next time I do this. Again, there will be links to all of the materials that I have used in this video and all of the videos that I mentioned in it. Happy beading! Bye!